Good evening, everybody. I'm just making sure that you can hear me okay. Can someone, if you don't have to have your camera on, if someone can give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Yeah, brilliant, great stuff. So welcome to this evening's webinar, the 3 steps to easily healing your intestine. That's not quite the title, but it doesn't matter. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Sue Thomas. I've been in the wellbeing industry for 20 years. I was previously a personal trainer. I'm now a nutritional therapist, and I work with people specifically to help them understand how their intestinal health impacts the whole of their body. And today we're going to understand just a little bit more about how you can easily heal your intestine in 3 easy steps. If you have any questions as we go along, please do put them in the chat box and I'll come back and answer them at the end. We should be about 45 minutes this evening just to help you, just to set your expectations as to how long we're going to be. Obviously, it depends on how many questions there are. So without further ado, we are going to get going with how to heal your intestine in 3 easy steps. So first of all, let me start by telling you a couple of stories. The first is, and I'm going to change the names for obviously privacy, but the first is a story about Pam. Pam had a car accident 15 years ago and was diagnosed with whiplash, which turned into chronic pain down through her neck and across the top of her shoulders. And for 15 years, she had been managing the chronic pain. She tried everything. She tried acupuncture, she tried chiropractic, she tried physiotherapy, and everything she tried, nothing worked. Nothing got rid of this chronic pain. And for 15 years, she had been managing her pain with painkillers. And it was getting worse. It was getting to the point where she was constantly wearing a heat pad around her neck. And I had a conversation with her about 3 or 4 months ago. And I said to her, I can help you solve that problem by looking at the foundation to your health, which is your intestine, and building and creating the building blocks, if you like, to help improve the health of your intestine, which will have a knock-on effect to the management of your pain. She followed the program that I'm going to talk to you about today and is now basically back at the gym, is very rarely taking painkillers on a day-to-day basis, and says, if I hadn't lived this, I wouldn't have believed it. How important it is to have the foundation of your health in place, which is what we're going to talk about today, your intestinal health. I'd also like to share with you, and I know she's on this webinar tonight, and I know she won't mind me sharing this, but someone that I've worked quite closely with had hormonal migraines, was taking a range of supplements to try and solve these hormonal migraines. And when I had a conversation with her about them, I said, you can solve that problem by sorting out the health of your intestine and sorting out the health of your liver. We worked together for the 21 days, and I'm sure she won't mind me, she might come on at the end and give that testimonial to how the program has worked for her. So the foundation to your health is really, really important. And lastly, I want to talk to you about Michael. Michael had underactive thyroid, high blood pressure, and was diagnosed type 2 diabetes. He was on a range of medications, and his doctor had said that he was going to have to increase his thyroid medication and increase his blood pressure medication. And his wife got in touch with me and said, is there anything we can do to help him to solve some of these issues and try and help him? He wasn't overweight. He wasn't, he was quite active on a day-to-day basis. He was an electrician. He had quite a busy business, so he did have a lot of stress. And she said, is there anything we can do to help him? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Let's focus on resetting the health of his intestine. And as a consequence, and it took more than 21 days, which is a program I'm going to share with you at the end, but as a consequence, I worked with him for 6 months to heal the health of his intestine and take his well-being forward. And as a consequence, he completely came off his thyroid medication. He reversed his type 2 diabetes, and he brought his blood pressure back down to normal. And that was purely by resetting the health of his intestine. So it's really powerful how important it is to have a healthy intestine. So we have a global health crisis in 21st century life. Obesity is huge. People are being diagnosed, 700 people a day are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune conditions that doctors can't treat, don't know how to treat, malnutrition, where we're eating too much food but not enough nutrients, IBS, again, another thing that doctors don't really know how to treat, and acid reflux or heartburn, poor sleep, lack of energy, skin conditions, all are issues that are dogging society on a day-to-day basis, and are all issues that are really solvable. So as I said, the foundation to our good health starts at the core, which is our microbiome. Our microbiome is all the bacteria that lives in us and on us. Okay, we have a range of different bacteria, a range of different locations for them. They live on our skin, they live in our intestine, they live for women in the birth canal, they live in our mouth, they live on our hands. This bacteria is really, really important to us. And it's only in recent years that scientists have started to discover just how important the health of our microbiome is to our long-term well-being. And there is a saying, only your mother loves you more than your gut bacteria. If your gut bacteria, if your microbiome, if all the good microbes that live on and in you are taken care of, they will give back to you time and time again. So let's look into the science of the microbiome in a little bit more detail. As I said, we're actually only 10% human. We're trillions and trillions of bacteria. And actually, scientists have started to say now that the microbiome is an organ in its own right. It weighs about 2 kilograms. If you brought all that bacteria together, it would weigh about 2 kilograms as part of the body. So it's really, really important to support our healthy microbes in the body. Bacteria, fungi, all of these are important to the health of our well-being. And having the correct balance is absolutely crucial. We should have about 80% good bacteria, 20% bad bacteria. In an ideal world, it'd be 85% good bacteria, 15% bad bacteria. You need a little bit of that bad bacteria. But in reality, what you need is more good bacteria than bad bacteria. And most people in 21st century life have reversed it and have only got about 15% good bacteria and 85% bad bacteria. And having the right balance is really, really important. And it's at birth that gut microbiome, that bacteria starts to form and form in a healthy way. So as the baby comes down the birth canal, it takes gulps of the birthing fluid, and that then helps to form the baby's microbiome. If the baby is C-section birth, it won't get that opportunity to take those gulps of birthing fluid. And then if the baby is bottle fed, again, it won't get the opportunity to get the good bacteria that comes through mum's milk. So if the baby is breastfed, then it's getting more of an opportunity to get all this range of bacteria that helps to form the gut microbiome. So as a human, our gut bacteria, our microbiome forms in the first 3 to 4 months of life. Now, if mum is breastfeeding and she has antibiotics, for example, that feeds into the baby. The baby takes some of those antibiotics, and antibiotics don't care what bacteria they kill, whether they kill good or bad bacteria. And this has is starting to lead to an endemic in society where our gut bacteria is out of alignment because of things potentially that have happened when we were a child. And it's so important to have the right balance of bacteria. So children that were C-section birth, often you start to see things like acne in their teenage years, maybe a little bit of IBS and some hormonal issues as they get older. And then often further down the line, other hormonal issues or weight gain issues in 30s and 40s. And this, and like Michael, the thyroid issue as well, when he was in his early 50s. So it's really important to establish that foundation to our good health when we are small, but obviously this is emerging science. This is only really developed in the last 10 to 15 years. So what happened when we were all small is kind of no one knew how important the microbiome was at this stage. And so now understanding how we can repair our gut microbiome is really important. It's such a crucial organ in terms of supporting our neurotransmitters, all the endorphins, the serotonin, anything basically that communicates with the brain. The gut microbiome helps to create B vitamins that help us to stay relaxed and calm. So we have this microbiome is a really important organ, and it provides a barrier. It provides the first line of defense from the outside world to inside our body, because basically it coats the whole of the intestinal tract, and so it prevents anything from passing across into the cardiovascular system that shouldn't be there. So the power of our microbiome is really, really important, and if it isn't working optimally, that can have an impact right across the body. And we're going to explore that in a little bit more detail today. So having a healthy gut microbiome will mean that your nervous system and your brain is functioning effectively. It will mean that you have a strong immunity. If your gut microbiome is 80 to 85% good bacteria, you will have a strong immunity. 90% of your immune system is in that bacteria, is made up of that bacteria. It will mean that you can metabolize your food effectively and manage your weight easily and keep your blood sugars under control. Having a healthy microbiome will mean that you can sleep effectively every night and have plenty of energy throughout the course of the day. You'll have effective hormone balance, whether you're male or female. Hormones are really important. We're not just talking about estrogen and progesterone here. We're also talking about testosterone. We're also talking about insulin balance. We're also talking about cortisol, a hormone that's released in relation to stress. A healthy microbiome will mean that we have the right hormone balance to be able to, for women, manage our cycle, but for men to have the right level of testosterone to ensure that they've got energy every day, that they're sleeping well, that they're fertile, etc., etc. And skin conditions, another big thing. The skin is a major organ, and anything going on in the intestine, if there are things passing across, if there are toxins passing across the gut wall, one of the ways the body gets rid of those toxins is to pass them through the skin. Our skin conditions massively improve. Eczema, psoriasis, rosacea, but acne as well, will all be improved if our gut microbiome is working effectively. So skin conditions aren't something that appear for someone who's got a healthy gut microbiome. So what is happening as far as our gut microbiome? Why is it not as healthy as it should be in 21st century life? And it is the way that we now live our lifestyle doesn't support the health of that bacteria. Like I said, only your mum loves you more than the gut bacteria that is in your intestine and lives on you and in your mouth, etc., etc. And so supporting that gut bacteria is really important to help it stay strong and stay established and dense. What's going on then that's preventing our gut bacteria from functioning effectively? Well, the first is that in 21st century life, we have more than ever before a convenience diet that is designed for taste and not health. It's designed to have a long shelf life with a lot of chemical preservatives in it and not a lot of nutrition. It's designed to support the back pockets of the shareholders, not to support your long-term health. There's a lot of marketing around processed foods to make them look like they're healthy, but they're not really healthy. They don't provide any support to the gut bacteria. They are high in sugar, high in bad fats that will have an inflammatory response in the body, and that will cause the good bacteria in the intestine to degrade, because they are cheap and easy to produce when they have high sugar content and high bad fat content. It keeps them shelf stable as well. It means that the food producing companies or the food manufacturers can get the maximum return for their investment, basically. The food industry is interested in their back pockets. They're not interested in your long-term well-being, and they're certainly not interested in supporting the health of the good bacteria in your intestine. Lots of foods now are kept in cold storage for long periods of time. Now, even though we are making good choices, sometimes the food that we are consuming, if it's been kept in cold storage for a long period of time, the nutrient content in it will have degraded over the period of time that's been kept in cold storage. So an apple, for example, when it's picked off a tree, the half-life of the nutrients in an apple is a month. If it's kept in cold storage from 1 September or October to the following June, say, for example, it's been kept in cold storage for such a long period of time that there's very little nutrient content left when it goes onto the shelf. So as soon as something is picked, its nutrients start to degrade. So trying to eat foods that are as fresh as possible. And so sometimes it's beyond our control. We can make choices around not eating processed food, for example, but we might go to the supermarket and be buying apples and all the, kind of what is known as fresh produce, but actually it's not that fresh and it doesn't have a huge amount of nutrition in it now. Unfortunately, this is the way we are moving in 21st century life. And then so many products these days are force grown out of season. And as a result, they don't form the full nutrient content. And that nutrient content is really important for feeding and nourishing the good bacteria. Everything that you consume is either going to help the health of the good bacteria or it's going to degrade it, basically. And when we consume foods that have been force grown out of season, they consume a lot of water and they don't form the nutrition in the right way. So we can be eating them, but they're giving us no nutrient content at all. So it's not feeding the good bacteria. So we can be making what we think are healthy choices, but these are not actually supporting the health of our gut microbiome. They're actually in long term degrading it. Bear with me just a second. And then the use of medicines and antibiotics. So antibiotics have been given out like sweets over the last many years because they were the panacea to solve so many health issues. And more recently, the medical profession have started to realize that actually antibiotics don't have, they're not the kind of dream medicine that originally we thought they were. They disrupt the health of the bacteria. They will destroy the good bacteria. They don't care what bacteria they destroy. So yes, they will do the job they need to do to get rid of the infection, but they will also damage the health of the gut bacteria. But many over-the-counter medicines like painkillers, ibuprofen, paracetamol, all of the higher dose painkillers as well. For example, the one that I told you about, my client who had the neck injury, she was taking painkillers on a regular basis every single day, and that was just gradually destroying the health of her gut microbiome. And then the long-term use of other medications like the birth control medication, C-sections. Obviously, we talked about the fact that the baby doesn't get the microbiome in the first place. But that can lead to childhood infections like ear infections, tonsillitis, chest infections, all of which are treated with antibiotics, which again disrupt the health of the microbiome. And it's really hard for the microbiome to recover, for the gut bacteria to recover after a period of antibiotics. In fact, it's been shown that just a 7-day course of antibiotics it can lead to a year of disruption to the gut bacteria. And if then you add on top of that a not so great diet that doesn't have lots of green veg and stuff in it, then that can mean that it's even slower for the gut bacteria to repair, if it repairs properly at all. So if you're struggling with IBS, if you're struggling with any digestive issues, if you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, if you find that your immunity is always really low and you're always getting colds, if you struggle with sleeping at night, all of these issues are linked back to the health of the gut microbiome. And then alcohol, we've started to lean on alcohol, and probably more so in the last 3 or 4 years, or two years since we've had the global pandemic. Many people were reaching for alcohol as a kind of almost a solution to the situation, as a way of managing and dealing with the situation. And alcohol is really disruptive to the health of the gut bacteria. There's no nutrient value at all to consuming alcohol. It's high in sugars, so it will feed the yeast in our intestine, and it will feed the bad bacteria. But it will take, it's estimated that even just one glass of wine can disrupt enough for the gut bacteria to go out of balance and for the bad bacteria to start to take hold. So alcohol and the consumption of alcohol not only disrupts the health of our gut bacteria, but it also disrupts the health of our liver as well. And our liver and intestine work really closely together to keep each other supported. The liver detoxifies chemicals and things out of the system, and then the intestine is flushing them out and getting rid of them. And the two things need to be working really well together. And alcohol puts a huge pressure on the liver, as well as on the health of the gut bacteria. And then environmental toxicity. So chemicals that we use around the house, that we breathe in, water that we drink that has got a level of toxicity in it, even the skincare products that we put on our skin can have a toxic load, basically, that we take on board. And this is a stress on the body, and it can cause a disruption to the gut bacteria, to the health of the intestine. So all of these things on a day-to-day basis, whether it's medicines that we've had previously, whether it is the environmental toxicity that we're being exposed to on a daily basis, whether it's our food choices, and food choices that we think we're making good food choices, but actually in reality, now that we've discovered that actually cold storage and force growing things out of season isn't really supporting the health of our gut bacteria. You add that together and we get a really stressed body. We get lots of stress going on internally. And when we're stressed internally, it's really hard to deal with stress externally. And we've started to see more and more that a stressed body doesn't support the health of our gut bacteria. It's really disruptive to the health of our gut bacteria. So when we're stressed, we release a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is a really important hormone for healing the body. But unfortunately, when we're under constant stress and we're constantly releasing cortisol, if cortisol rises too high in the system, it can become really toxic to the body. And as a result, it becomes toxic to the gut bacteria. And it starts to degrade the health of the good bacteria. So long-term stress externally causes cortisol to be released, and that will disrupt the health of the good bacteria, which is why often when people struggle with stress, they often struggle with this digestive disruption as well, because it impacts the health of the gut bacteria. But also, if you add on top of that, environmental toxins, chemicals, medication that we've had previously, and a diet that's not as good as we hoped it might be through no fault of our own. And all of a sudden, we're finding that the gut bacteria is being overrun more and more with all these kind of things that all these kind of this warfare that's happening basically against our good bacteria. And so the more that we can support our good bacteria in many different ways, the more we are going to be able to improve our well-being, the more we're going to be able to manage our stress, and the more we are then going to be able to improve our long-term well-being. When our microbiome is working properly, actually, yeah, I will come on to that slide, sorry. When our microbiome is working properly, then we can start to really see an improvement to our health. So just to recap then, what is happening here, environmental toxins, medication, stress, alcohol, poor diet, out of our control, all of these things are causing the body to go into a state of stress. These are all toxins that we take on board basically, but they all cause stress in the body. And as I said, when we are in a state of stress, we release a hormone called cortisol, which is really important for healing the body. But when it builds too high in the system, causes the gut bacteria to be disrupted. Now, this gut bacteria forms a really powerful wall, a barrier on the wall of the intestine. But if the cortisol is rising in our system, if stress is rising in our system, and the cortisol is disrupting the gut bacteria, holes start to form in this barrier that is formed around the gut wall. And because these holes start to form, so toxins that we're taking on board in our food, or undigested food particles or pathogens, they can start to work their way through this barrier of the gut bacteria and begin to aggravate the junctions of the cells that form the gut wall. And they can start to split apart those cells and begin to work their way through into the cardiovascular system. They start to make holes in the gut wall, essentially. Now, our immune system is designed to prevent anything passing across that shouldn't be passing across. So if you cut your finger, for example, the little bit of inflammation that forms around the finger, around the cut, is really important, because that bit of inflammation is creating a barrier to the outside world. It's preventing anything passing across that cut. Now, exactly the same thing happens when things are passing across your gut wall. When a toxin, for example, or an undigested food particle breaks through the barrier of the gut bacteria because it's beginning to degrade because of the high levels of cortisol in our system, when that pathogen or that toxin passes across the gut, the barrier, the gut barrier, the microbiome barrier, and it starts to break down the wall of the intestine, little holes begin to form. And so the immune system it does the job it needs to do. It creates a bit of inflammation around that hole to stop anything else from passing across. But then it happens somewhere else, and it happens somewhere else, and it keeps on happening. And the immune system has to keep on creating little patches of inflammation to kind of put a sticking plaster across these holes that are forming. And all of a sudden, we've got a really inflamed intestinal wall, because the immune system keeps trying to create inflammation to stop things passing across. Now, this inflammation is a massive stress internally in the body, and it can cause a disruption to our metabolism. It can start to cause disruption to our thyroid function. Go back to Michael at the beginning, he was on a high dose of thyroxine. We healed his gut and he came off thyroxine completely. So it can cause a disruption to the metabolism, and it can start to cause blood sugar imbalances. So when we have internal stress, when we are stressed internally and cortisol is high, we start to get peaks up, roller coasters of insulin. Insulin starts to rise in the system as well. And we start to eat foods that are not necessarily supportive to our insulin balance. Insulin is a hormone that's released in response to sugar and to keep our blood sugars really well balanced. But if our metabolism is out of alignment, it's disrupting the health of our glucose balance, our blood sugar balance, and that's then causing insulin to be released and too much insulin to be released. And so we start to get peaks and troughs of insulin in the system. Again, another stress on the system, more cortisol is released, more disruption to the gut bacteria. And this insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, potentially type 2 diabetes, high peaks and troughs of insulin, high levels of cortisol, those two hormones together, insulin and cortisol, can cause the body to lay down fat as storage and keep hold of that fat. So we never burn that fat for fuel if insulin and cortisol is high in the system. Because we've got a disruption to the metabolism, because insulin is high, because cortisol is high, because we've got all this inflammation going on, we start to lay down fat and we can't burn that fat for fuel. We end up just starting to put on more and more weight, and we start to move into that obese category. So if you are someone that has been struggling maybe with your metabolism and your thyroid, maybe with your blood sugar balance, maybe with weight gain and stubborn weight gain that you can't get rid of, all of these issues can be traced back to the health of your intestine. So we're not just dealing with IBS, for example, we're not just dealing with poor sleep, we're dealing with so many other issues as well. Big issues like cardiovascular disease, like type 2 diabetes, like obesity, like autoimmune conditions, all linked back to the foundation of our health, which is our intestine and the health of our gut microbiome. So the whole metabolic dysfunction title, which applies to cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes and autoimmune conditions, etc., all of it, if you turned all those arrows backwards, would all link back to the health of the intestine and whether the intestine is working effectively. Bear with me a second. I'm not drunk enough today. I know I'm not drunk enough today, and my mouth as I'm doing this presentation is really dry, so apologies. So the overall outcomes of having an unhealthy intestine, an inflamed intestine, as I said, not just things like poor sleep and tiredness, can lead to autoimmune conditions like chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. Hormone imbalance, thyroid function, PMT, menopause symptoms, all linked back to the health of the gut microbiome. Headaches due to an underfunctioning liver. Unfortunately, if our liver's underfunctioning, we get headaches because we can't clear the toxicity out of our system, and we take medication to solve those headaches. That actually degrades the health of the liver further and reduces the liver's ability to be able to function. Inflammation around the intestinal wall can lead to joint pain. It can also lead to weakened immunity. Already touched on autoimmune conditions like fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. Poor skin health because the body's trying to get rid of the toxins that are passing across the gut wall. Stubborn weight because cortisol and insulin are high and preventing from fat burning from taking place. Type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, pre-diabetes. All of these things linked to health of the gut microbiome and the health of the liver. The two things need to work in conjunction with each other. But if you have a symptom like you're not sleeping very well at night, usually it can be linked back to the health of the intestine. If you have a hormonal issue, it can be linked back to the health of the intestine and the liver. Headaches, you name it, we can link it back to the health of the gut microbiome. And it is only just recently that they've started to recognize just how important the health of the gut microbiome is. So, 3 steps that you're all here for to get to boundless energy every day: healthy, clear skin, deep sleep, so that you've got plenty of energy throughout the day, getting rid of your hormone imbalances and reducing the symptoms of menopause, complete mental clarity, get rid of the IBS and the discomfort and the bloating, easing joint pain, becoming the person that you want to become, reversing type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular disease. You can do that by focusing on the health of your intestine. So the 3 simple steps that you need to know, they're actually not rocket science. They're really very simple. The first is to remove those refined and processed foods that we talked about at the beginning that are full of sugar and full of bad fats and often gluten, which is really disruptive to the health of the good bacteria. Remove the alcohol as much as possible. It doesn't have to go forever, or it doesn't have to go completely. If you know how to repair your gut bacteria post having a couple of glasses of wine, not all the time, just every now and again, you can allow alcohol to come back in a little bit. And removing as much dairy as possible as well. All of these are highly inflammatory to the health of the intestine. Then focusing on your nutrition, having leafy green vegetables with every meal because they are full of short chain fatty acids which will feed the good bacteria. And make sure you're having protein for breakfast because protein will help to balance your blood sugars. And if your blood sugars are balanced, that's one less stress on the body. So one less reason for the body to have to produce cortisol. Cortisol being that hormone that's disruptive to the gut bacteria. And consume lots of prebiotic foods in the form of garlic, leeks, onions, lots of cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower. All of these will feed the good bacteria and support the gut bacteria that is in existence in your intestine. And then using a probiotic as well. But unfortunately, if your gut bacteria is really out of alignment, sometimes using a probiotic can be a bit futile because actually what needs to happen is your whole intestine needs to be cleaned and repaired essentially, and then the good bacteria put it back in place. So that is where we would use our Pure 21 program, which is our 21-day intestinal reset program. And that is the program, if you go back to the stories that I shared with you at the beginning, all of those 3 people used the Pure 21 program to solve hormonal issues, to solve chronic pain, and to solve metabolic imbalances like thyroid function and type 2 diabetes. And the 3 steps the Pure 21 program involves these 3 steps. It involves removing the crap, the caffeine, refined sugar, alcohol, and processed food. It involves focusing on your nutrition, and it involves a supplementation program. So it is a 21-day intestinal reset program that will solve almost every health issue. I can't promise you it will solve every single one, but it will pretty much solve, if you follow the program and then continue with the maintenance, it will solve most health issues. And sometimes we think we're doing the right things, but we're still getting these symptoms coming to the surface. And that is because the intestinal bacteria is only ever able to kind of maintain itself. It's not able to get to kind of better health, if you like. It's only ever able to keep it at a certain level because of other kind of environmental factors and stuff. And by doing the Pure 21 program, we can really skyrocket the health of our of the good bacteria and help to heal the intestinal wall, so that we can really start to see an improvement in our long-term well-being. So the program operates 3 clean meals a day. You cut out the crap, caffeine, refined sugar, alcohol, and processed food for the 21 days. And within that, we also recommend that you cut out the beige as well, but it doesn't fit in the crap analogy. Beige being things like bread and pasta, things that don't support the health of the good bacteria. So you're eating 3 clean meals a day, and we're using a clinically trialed targeted supplementation program that cleans the intestine, heals the gut wall, feeds the good bacteria, supports the liver, and gets the cardiovascular system working effectively, and really gets the body back to really good long-term health. There's no fads or meal replacements within this program. It's about learning how to eat for longevity, but at the same time cleaning the liver and the intestine and getting everything back into balance. And as part of the program, you get a handbook with full guidance, a Facebook group for support, videos, a playlist of videos for every single day, a recipe collection, a what to take when guide. There's so much support within this program, within this 21-day program, and it gets absolutely fabulous results. These are the 5 clinically trialed supplements that you will use during that 21-day program. There is the BioMDT as an intestinal cleaning. It cleans the gut wall, it cleans everything and gets everything moving in the intestine. Body Prime is a magnesium supplement. It helps to calm everything down and reduce inflammation. Biome is a pre and probiotic. Biome Shake is a pea protein to help balance your blood sugars, and Pro-Arginine supports the liver and supports the whole of the cardiovascular system to help everything clean up. It will clean the toxicity out of your system. It will heal the gut wall. It will support the good bacteria and feed the good bacteria, and it will get everything working back in the right balance again, so that you can start to improve your long-term well-being. When we're healthy, when we want to get healthy and we think what we need to do is kind of, lose weight and go to the gym and start eating healthily and stuff, if the body's full of toxins, those toxins are still in our system. So as soon as we stop being on that health regime, if you like, we start to put the weight back on again. But when we clear those toxins out of the body and we purify the body can then work much more efficiently, much more in balance again. And so when we are supporting the health of our gut bacteria, it can then continue to clear all that toxicity out of the system, and it can help the body to function more effectively. So is it time to start investing in your long-term well-being? If you have symptoms like hormone imbalance, or perhaps endometriosis, or cardiovascular problem, or poor thyroid function, type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, for example, high cholesterol, all of these things are a way of your body telling you that there's something internally that needs to be addressed. And without fail, it will be the foundation to your long-term well-being, which is the health of your microbiome. So how much do you spend on your car every year to keep it working? You get it serviced, you get it MOT'd, you might put new tyres on it. You always put the right fuel in it, because it won't work if you put the wrong fuel in it. You spend a considerable amount on your car every year. We spend a considerable amount on our phones. Even if we're not getting new phones, we've got a data plan, and we've got, kind of access to all these different apps, etc., etc. And each month we're spending an amount on our phone. We're plugging our phone in at the end of the day to recharge the battery. We're taking care of our phone because it's our communication with the outside world. Well, if we were to take care of our bodies first, because our bodies, we can't use our phone if our body's not working effectively. So taking care of our body first means that we can utilize that phone on a regular basis. How much are you spending on a cup of coffee every day? £3, £3.50 every day, maybe a little bit more, because you haven't got time to have breakfast in the morning, so you're grabbing it on the way to work or what have you. It's time to put yourself first, because there's no point in having a car, there's no point in having a healthy pension pot, there's no point in having the next most expensive phone, etc., etc., if you can't enjoy them. There's no point in having a healthy pension pot so that you can have a pension, a retirement, if you can't enjoy that retirement. And now is the time to start focusing on the health of your well-being and making sure that your gut bacteria is working efficiently. We don't have to be constantly focusing on our gut bacteria, but what we do have to do is service it at least once a year to support it and help it work effectively. The more your condition, the more symptoms you have coming to the surface, the more you need to focus on supporting the health of your intestine. It's very simple to do. The 3 simple steps to cut out all the crap, caffeine, refined sugar, alcohol, processed food, and anything beige, and focusing on 3 really healthy meals a day, with lots of green, lots of a palm-sized piece of protein, and lots of colours on the plate, and also using this targeted supplementation program over 21 days to help heal the health of your intestine. The next Pure 21 program is going to start on the 19th of September. You can do the Pure 21 program as a individual, or you can do it as a group. And the next group start is on the 19th of September. When we do it as a group, it's highly supportive, and everyone's working together. Or you can work on it individually, because you have the handbook and you have the video playlist, and you have the what to take when guide. It's entirely up to you. You don't have to start on the 19th of September because that might not work for you, but you would still get access to the Facebook group, etc., etc. So if you are ready to take the simple steps to improving your long-term well-being, to making a change, to getting rid of those underlying conditions that have been dragging you down for years, if you're ready to make that change, then now is the time to start focusing on the Pure 21 program. There's never been a better time. September is a great month to support the body and to start clearing out some of the toxicity, to start healing the gut wall, and to start repairing the good bacteria. My guess is you're on this webinar today because you want to know how to heal your intestine, because you've got something that's happening, whether it's bloating, whether it's IBS, or whether it's a bigger issue. Something is going on for you that means you want to understand how you can heal your intestine. And the Pure 21 program is the ideal way to do that. It's a very targeted, efficient program that gets absolutely fabulous results. So if you want to know how you can access the Pure 21 program, go back to the person that invited you onto this webinar and have a conversation with them. I have recorded the webinar.